Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials, and in this video we're going to be talking all about VueJS templating, as in what it means to actually use the template language in Vue, and we're going to get started writing some Vue code. So in the last video we wrote our first little bit of Vue code, and well, you might have had some questions about this stuff up top here in the HTML. Like, what's going on here? If you haven't used anything like handlebars, or in Meteor there's something called space bars or mustache or any of these other JavaScript templating languages, this set of syntax might be a little bit confusing. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the templating language within Vue. Now, it's based off of the mustache style syntax. Again, if you haven't used mustache, then that probably means nothing to you. However, those of you who have will feel right at home with this syntax, in which we have double brackets to be able to output variables, and in this case, stuff that's in our data. And in future cases, it's going to be stuff that is not just in our data. I'll get into what that means again in several other videos. But just like we had hello output in here, we could also have some text. Scott says, and then in quotes right here, you can see this now says, Scott says, hello world. Let me actually just add a CSS rule and just say body. We're going to say font size is equal to 24 pixels, just to get this a little bit bigger. Hey, actually, let's say this 36 pixels here. That way we can see it nice and big. That's the last we're going to do with CSS or stylus or anything. Okay, so as you can see here, Scott says hello. Okay, and the cool thing is, even though we have quotes here, everything that's inside of these double brackets is going to get parsed sort of like JavaScript. And I mean sort of because we can't do a ton of JavaScript in these brackets and expect it to work. We'll go over a little bit more about what that means exactly. Now, you can see it's just simply outputting the string because that's all we have here in our data. Okay, so far so good. Now I said we could use a little bit of kind of JavaScript inside of here, as in we're not going to be able to write statements, as in we cannot define variables, we cannot do full-on if statements, that sort of stuff, but what we can run is expressions. So for instance, we have this variable hello, and you could use a method like a string method onto this and actually affect it. For instance, if we wanted to output the length of the string rather than the string itself, we could access the property .length on this and actually have it output, Scott says 11, right? Because that's the length of the string hello world. So we do have access to methods and properties. You can even do ternary expressions, as in if this then that, using the question mark and colon inside of these. In fact, let's see something like that in action. We're going to go on our new data and define a new property. We're just going to say is true, okay? And the answer to that is going to be true. Okay, is it true? Sure, it's true. Now, inside of our template here, we can say, hey, what we want to do if is true, question mark, then we're going to output hello. Otherwise, we're going to output, and in this case, we can actually have a string inside of our brackets. We can say no, okay? So check this out. If Scott says, if is true, then output the hello world. You can see it does say hello world. If we were to change this variable to false in our JS, this would now say Scott says no, because this is evaluating this expression. So as you can see here, we can use a little bit of JavaScript inside of here, but what we can't do is full-on statements. We cannot do assignments. We cannot do flow control. We cannot do any of that stuff. So don't expect to be able to throw a couple of brackets in here and do full-on JavaScript. Now you see now that our data has come in from two places. It's come in from our data property hello and our data property is true. Now there's a couple of other things that get added to this syntax as being evaluating in Vue. We could also have a method, which is simply just a function on your Vue instance that can run and do all sorts of stuff and then output as a variable without actually having to be a data variable. You could also have something called a computed property, which is going to be able to take data variables or all sorts of things and compute new versions of them, again, outputting directly as a variable in your code here. Now, again, nothing is explicitly defined inside of our HTML. We're not importing is true. We're not doing all of that simply because it's in the data element. We have access to it. Okay. So this is a little bit into the templating syntax, the brackets, the mustache style syntax. And that's pretty much it for the templating syntax. And when I say templating syntax, I'm mostly just referring to the handlebars type of stuff. We're essentially able to output variables, and anything within these two brackets is going to be ran as a JavaScript expression. So when I made that clarifying statement about this handling this mustache style templating, there's a whole second bit of templating syntax in Vue. And if you come from Angular land, this is going to feel very, very comfortable. And if you come from exclusively React land, you are going to feel very uncomfortable. And if you've never used a JavaScript framework at all, then you might just find them very, very exciting and maybe confusing at the same time. But we're going to be going over in the next video are the type of properties we can add to our HTML elements to do various things. Now, we're not going to be doing all of these in full on example because some of these require their own videos, such as conditionals, loops, sort of user input, that sort of stuff. But we're going to sort of dive in a little bit to the syntax here and talk about what this kind of stuff is so that once we're ready to start using it for real, it's going to feel very comfortable. So as always, this is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. If you would like to purchase this entire series, head on over to leveluptutorials.com/store and purchase Vue for everyone. Or you can become a Level Up Pro and get access to not only Vue for everyone, but a ton of other premium tutorial series, such as Pro Gatsby or Modern CSS Layouts. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.